How can the Dallas Stars get Wyatt Johnston going again? We have an update on Jake Oettinger, and here's some interesting words on Nils Lundkvist from head coach Pete DeBoer, and we preview the Montreal Canadiens. That and more coming up next on Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer, 105 Through the Fan, and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. The Stars return to action after a beatdown on New Year's Eve of the Chicago Blackhawks by the final score of 8-1, taking on the Montreal Canadiens tonight at the American Airlines Center. We will preview them and play Shooting Stars, so get those picks. I'm 2 for my last 2, so let's go ahead and make it 3 straight. We have an update on Jake Oettinger. He's farther away from returning than closer, but still he's progressing. And some interesting words from head coach Pete DeBoer on Nils Lundkvist. I have a clip I want to play for y'all. But first, we need to talk about Wyatt Johnston. What is going on? Is he in a sophomore slump? He certainly is. The month of December was one to forget for number 53. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. So I've been kind of throwing this in every once in a while throughout the month of December. And now I figured it was a great time to really dig into it. And it's not an indictment on Wyatt Johnston by any means, because I think his play's been very good. He continues to do the right thing, especially against Chicago a couple of nights ago. He was hungry on the forecheck. He was making things happen. It was remarkable that his line didn't register a point because they were also really good in the contest. In an 8-1 win, that's usually going to be the case. It seemed like all 4 lines are rolling. But I think I've come to the conclusion that they may need to think about breaking up the Dadanov, Benn, and Johnston line. It's been very unproductive this season. At 5-on-5, they've scored just a total of 8 goals. And that's third least on the team of the pair of trios that we're seeing consistently night in and night out. Radek Fox's Sam Steele and Craig Smith this season have scored 5 goals at 5-on-5. Rope's line and Sagan's line have scored 23 goals. And that should tell you that it's really not clicking. And this is a really difficult conversation to have too, when it seems like the lines are starting to find their groove. The top line's kind of back to dominating. Dutchy's line's been great all year, and we really haven't seen the Johnston line have any sort of sustained success probably since the first month of the season when Johnston was on that tear where he had 9 goals in the first 20 games or whatever it was. He's now gone 16 games without a goal, and he had a multi-goal night against Calgary back in November. I think they need to think about breaking up that trio, and that's really difficult. But with the elevated play of Sam Steele lately, I would love to see Steele play with Benn and Johnston, because that gives that line kind of that gritty guy that can go in and win those battles. And then Johnston and Benn don't have to do it as much, right? Dadanov is more of a puck possession player, a really good facilitator. They don't really kind of have that guy, I feel like, to go win battles on the forecheck and be the F1 to turn pucks over. And Benn, of course, is that kind of player to some degree, but he doesn't do that on a consistent basis. Of course, he's a veteran guy. I think if you get a player like Sam Steele on that trio, I think he could really unlock some potential. And that is a really tough thing for me to say because the 4th line has been humming. And I think it's going to be really hard to put Radek Fox back in the lineup here tonight. It is against Montreal, so maybe they don't care. But with how great that 4th line was a few nights ago, that's going to be a really, really hard thing to break up. But a few more numbers that really, really stick out to me. Goals per 60 minutes, and this is for trios that have played at least 100 minutes this season. Benn, Johnston, and Dadanov rank in the bottom 10 in terms of goals for per 60. That's tied with Faksa, Steele, and Smith at 1.9. Their expected goals percentage, or their goals percentage, not expected, but just goals percentage is at 40%. That's also in the bottom 15 in the NHL. They're okay defensively. They're not bad by any means. They're pretty decent in that area, but we all know that line needs to be productive, and so does Wyatt Johnston. It is so key to have him going. And imagine with this offense that is now ranked second in the National Hockey League with 3.6 goals per game, you get Wyatt Johnston going again, and then you have three lines contributing. Man, you're going to be a very, very tough beat. But Johnston only ended up with 5 points, and it was all 5 assists in the month of December. Actually, I believe it was only, it was 4 points in the month of December. So not a very good month for number 53. And again, it's not his place, so to speak, because, I mean, he had a dozen chances, like point blank, one-on-one with the netminder. And sometimes he just straight up misses. Sometimes he hits the goalie or he gets robbed. He's getting to the right areas, which of course is a great sign. And I'm not panicking about Wyatt Johnston, but there maybe needs to be some discussion about trying to switch things up and get him going, finding something that's going to facilitate better outcomes for him, because I think clearly that line has been lacking, at least in the last month or so. And maybe it's only going to be going if Johnston's going, and it's not going right now. So there needs to be some real conversation. I think putting Steele on that line would be a really nice addition. And again, I know the fourth line has been very good, but it'll be more important to get Johnston going than having a fourth line be very productive, because a line with Benn, Johnston, and Dadanov should not have 3 more 5-on-5 goals than the fourth line. To some degree, I feel like that's a bit unacceptable. That line is too good. And their Corsi percentage, too, is not very good. They just don't play with the puck as much. 48.5 is their Corsi, and that's in 30 games. And they're, of course, one of the 3 trios that's been consistent, really, since day one. So I think there needs to be a bit of a discussion now of maybe switching up that trio in particular. I think Dadanov on the fourth line is an intriguing factor. You don't lose that offensive punch, and you don't lose that shutdown ability. Dadanov's really responsible. He's a good two-way forward. And Faksa, if you have him in, Dellandrea, Smith, they're all very reliable defensively, and they've been really, really good. I feel like the fourth line is in a great spot where it doesn't really matter who plays to some degree. Guys can be fresh in and out of the lineup. We've seen Dellandrea get healthy scratch. Faksa now in the last month has been scratched twice. And I really like that line of Steele, Smith, and Dellandrea. They've had some big nights. But more importantly, Wyatt Johnston needs to get going. He's disappeared. Even though he's playing good and he's in the right areas, he's disappeared on the score sheet, and that's where they need him most. He's very, very key to their success. Look what he did last spring as really a depth guy, as that rookie, and he had a wonderful playoff run. So it's just very unfortunate that he hasn't been able to get to his game recently, and I think part of it is the line. Benn hasn't been playing very consistent lately. Dadanov, as of late, has gotten to his game, but he kind of disappeared for a second. I think putting Johnston in a situation that's beneficial for him and will probably lead to more chances and to higher success is something that really needs to be thought about. And I'm sure they're exhausting all options. Look, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, Pete DeBoer doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, they're in the top 3 of the Central Division, and they're winning games with a backup netminder at this point, who statistically is not one of the better goaltenders in the National Hockey League. In terms of goal save above expected, I think is in the bottom 15. But at the same time, Wedgwood's been phenomenal. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and say he's been terrible either, because I have sung his praises for about a month now, how phenomenal Wedgwood has been and kind of cleaning up. But Wyatt Johnston for the Stars needs to start finding his goal scoring touch once again. Switch it up a bit. That trio hasn't been working. Find something else. I think the fourth line is going to be just as productive and still shut down as they need it to be. Let's get 53 rolling again. It's just a matter of time. Not panicking about it. Sometimes you just run into these stretches, and he's having one right now. No better person he's living with, too, and Joe Pavelski, who just went on almost a career-long goalless streak as well. So I think it's just a matter of time. And when he's getting to the right areas and still getting shots and making things happen, hungry on the forecheck, good things are going to happen for you. He needs to get one to go. And I think the snowball will be rolling. Let's segue into Jake Oettinger and Nils Lundkvist. I got a great clip for y'all from Pete DeBoer on Nils Lundkvist, and we have some more updates on Mr. Jake Oettinger, and we will do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is obsessed with finding you tickets and helping you save on money. Last-minute tickets on the Game Time app. We all know how frustrating it can be to buy tickets to your favorite hockey game, your favorite Stars game, the Cowboys, theater, comedy, whatever. Game Time can provide it, and they want to make it so easy for you. You can see the view of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what you're going to get. Also, the all-in prices show the total up front, which is so key. We've all been there. Oh, I'm going to get $20 tickets a pop here. The next thing you know, it's like $100. Where did all these extra fees go? Game Time shows you it up front, so you don't have to worry about that. Buy tickets in 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Get that sports-loving fan in your life some tickets as well to their favorite team's game. There's so many great sports in action recently, too. No better time to be a sports fan. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That is Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So before we jump in to a bit of Jake Oettinger discussion, by the way, Locked On has started the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Go over there right now. Hit subscribe on Locked On Stars. Put that notification bell on, okay? For all you everydayers out there who have not, go ahead and do it so you never miss an episode of Locked On Stars. But as I mentioned, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, all the top sports stories with local experts on our national shows covering every league. So phenomenal. So go over there and check it out. So Pete DeBoer did give an update on Jake Oettinger recently, and he mentioned that he is skating and progressing, but he's farther away than closer. The Stars also loaned Matt Murray back down to the AHL, and that was only to save some cap space because, of course, Matt Murray's been called up on the emergency cap situation thing. So they loaned him back down, saves him a couple bucks. I'm sure he will be brought up here for tonight's game against Montreal, or it could be Remy Poirier, whoever it's going to be. They're going to have a backup at some point. So that's what's happening here recently. But if I had to say, they're going to be very cautious about this, and I've been on board too. Plus, the Stars are winning, and they have this stretch now where they're not playing very good teams. Yes, it's Central Division, but they can handle some of these squads. They may be really lucky. They got Minnesota a couple of times here in the next week. Kaprizov looks like he's going to be out for that. Philip Gustafsson looks like he's going to be out for that as well. Their goalie just got hurt too. So if you can continue to just churn out points, there's no reason to rush Oettinger back. And he doesn't seem that he's very close. I think it's going to be about a month. This is very similar to the Wedgwood injury last season where, it's going to be about 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks came around. Okay, he's nowhere to be found. And it ended up being a little bit over a month. I think it's going to be about the same. So, of course, you went down on the 15th of December. I think the earliest, if I had to speculate, you could see him as the 16th of this month when the Stars play LA at home. that feels like kind of a benchmark for maybe the earliest possible we could see Oettinger. And if they continue to win, I think they're going to be very, very comfortable with having Otter rehab, making sure he's back to fully 100%. And I'm on board with that too. Look, no worries. Whatever they need to do and whatever he feels his most comfortable with and where his mentality's at 100%, where he's not thinking about it, right? I think that's part of it, is where he's not worried about, if I, kind of go post to post here, am I going to re-aggravate it? Where he's mentally able to get back into the pipes and compete at a very high level. And with what Wedgwood is doing, they need to get him some rest. I mentioned this here last week. It's very important to find some time to get Wedgwood some rest. You got some very beatable opponents. You shouldn't need the goaltending to be spectacular. I think it would be awesome to get Wedgwood a few nights off here in the next week or so. So that is an update there on Jake Oettinger. Let's move on to Nils Lundkvist, who, of course, played in 2 consecutive games for the first time. And, man, I don't know how long, probably towards the end of November, since he's been healthy scratched a lot. But, of course, he played against Chicago. I don't necessarily see that as continuing to happen here, but they're playing Montreal again, bottom 5 team in the league. I think they may be comfortable with playing Lundkvist. This is a good time to get him in, and that kind of felt like the vibe with playing him against Chicago. So I want to roll off this clip first and then give a few more thoughts on it as well from Pete DeBoer. Mike Heika asked a question, of course, and this is from DallasStars.com, and Pete DeBoer answered a question about Nils Lundkvist kind of managing an asset and possibly the development, like where the NHL is not a development league, but also trying to manage an asset. And I thought Pete DeBoer had a great response.
My priority is to manage 20 guys and to make sure we get in a playoff spot and as high a playoff seeding as we can get. That's my number one priority. So, the managing assets is something that other departments worry about more than I do, and I think there's time and places for that. I think the first 20-25 games of the year, training camps, things like that, but you start getting to this time of year, there's a lot at stake. You got to try and win every night. The margins are small, and things can turn quickly. You lose 4 or 5 in a row, and all of a sudden you're right back in the middle of the pack.
So I really like that answer from Pete DeBoer, and it also tells a lot, right? Where, of course, I think there's 2 key things to his answer, right? His top priority is getting the top playoffs spot, right? And getting home ice advantage. And really, the Stars are in the same realm, right? They just don't have time to wait for guys to find their game. It's very unfortunate. And I like how he did discuss too. I think the other really key thing was there, training camp and managing him in the first 20 games is somewhere where he can look at that. And right, that's kind of what we saw in the first 20 games. Look, he came out, I think he played the first 26 straight before we got his first healthy scratch. I could be wrong, but it was around that 25 game mark where he pretty much played the first about third of the season. And now it's been kind of a consistent, he's up in the press box watching hockey at this point. And I think they gave him a chance to continue to improve, and they didn't really see that. And I've spoken on that earlier this season about he hasn't been terrible. The eye test is okay, but he hasn't really made that jump that Harley made. And you don't have the luxury of moving Lundkvist down to the AHL due to contract reasons like you did with Harley. He got another full season to develop in the American Hockey League, and then he comes in, and now he's lighting the world on fire and has 9 goals on the season. And he's tied for the most in the National Hockey League in terms of defensemen this season. You just don't have that luxury, and the Stars also don't have time to wait for him to find his game. Of course, it would be awesome if he does, and he will be a very valuable asset moving forward because he is a right shot defenseman. I thought that was going to be a real key thing coming into the year, right? Well, the Stars are light on right shot defensemen. Well, they kind of have some in-house solutions with Lundkvist. That was one of them that you're hoping was really going to pan out. And even if you think he doesn't deserve to be scratched every game, the coaching staff doesn't trust him. He rarely plays in tight games in the sample size we have this season, and very tight games late. About the 8-minute mark, you kind of see no more 5. And of course, Miro's going to take up a chunk of that time, and Suter is too, along with Harley now. But Lundkvist was straight bench practically. And, I thought he played really well over the weekend. He ended up with 3 points against Chicago. To me, I think they thought, well, it's not a very good team. A great chance to get him in against a very young and fast team that's not very physical. Lundkvist can play that style. And I think Lundkvist has taken a step this season in terms of his body control and being a bit stronger on the puck. He's still making some curious decisions sometimes with some turnovers and mishaps there. But look, I understand Suter makes the same problems, and sometimes they turn a blind eye to that. But I understand you might hate it. Suter has almost 3 decades worth of time in the National Hockey League, and that's just kind of the way it goes. And coaches are always going to lean towards a veteran, and Lundkvist is just not going to get that rope. His leash is going to be a lot tighter. And so I thought that was a very intriguing clip, and kind of the mindset of Pete DeBoer, where they just can't wait right now. They need to win games and get the best possible playoff spot. That's his top priority. And, for the first 20 games or so, he may have had some leeway to kind of do that and get him going. But at this point, you don't, because he's right. 4 or 5 game stretches, man, you lose 3. Next thing you know, you feel like you got a Mount Everest to climb to get back up there. So really love that answer and wanted to show it. Okay, let's go ahead. Preview this Montreal Canadiens team and play Shooting Star. We're 2 for our last 2. Let's make it 3 in a row. Get those picks in as well. I'll tell you about the Canadiens in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but still time to get on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The NFL season is coming to an end. The Cowboys have a chance with a win against the Washington Commanders to win the NFC East, because the Philadelphia Eagles are choking, okay? And it's no better sight to our very sore eyes with the Dallas Cowboys. They have a chance to win. Go ahead, play some live same game parlays. You can find bets, explore the new tabs, make a parlay with those Dallas Cowboys. It's the best way to make some money on FanDuel. And as I mentioned, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Once again, go to Locked On, the first ever streaming 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. The top sports stories with our local national shows. Great stuff over there. They started it. It's been killing it. So please go show them some love. Show me some love on the Twitter, the JoeyJet19. You can follow me there, throwing out all my opinions, all my observations, sometimes just letting things come through my mouth onto my fingertips. Don't know where I'm going with that. Anyways, these Montreal Canadiens have lost 3 in a row, playing their first game of the new year. I guess along with the Dallas Stars as well. But these Canadiens, man, it's been rough. 15, 16, and 5 this season. One of the bottom 5 teams in the NHL, as they've said, dealing with some injuries, but they've got some really shoddy goaltending this season, and they're not scoring as much too. I mean, the Stars can take advantage of this team. No doubt. They have one of the worst PKs in the National Hockey League, only 72%. Their power play is okay. It's a bit below league average, but the Stars power play can have a night if they get going once again, especially how they did against Chicago with that amount of energy and pace they were playing with. They can draw a ton of penalties. They've scored now in back-to-back games with a power play goal, which is a good sign. It's slowly kind of coming out of the crater that they were in. So really can take advantage of this very poor Montreal Canadiens PK. They've given up over 3 goals per game, or they're scoring 2.75 goals per game, which is in the bottom 10 of the league. They're just outside of the top 10 in goals against, 3.39. And of course, the Stars are just lighting everybody on fire recently. So they can really get after this Canadiens team. They should not have a big issue. And I think we could certainly see a performance like we saw against Chicago, where, I mean, for 60 minutes, they had them all out of sorts, and they can really make some good things happen. They played some really, really good games against Montreal, I feel like, recently, too. Pav had a hat trick up in at the Bell Center last season, and their netminders, they've been kind of going through this 3 goalie carousel this season, which is very interesting. So they have Jake Allen, and they have a couple of guys that are intriguing to some other teams. But Jake Allen, they have Montembeault and Caden Primo. They all have, a few starts. Primo with 8, Montembeault 27, and Allen with 33. Allen's kind of, I guess, taken over, but they all have not very good numbers as a team, a .902 save percentage and a 3.18 goals against average. So they're going to 3 guys, but haven't been getting much success with either of them. So we'll see who they go to here tonight. Don't really have a great guess. I would think maybe Jake Allen, who's played against Montreal, has played against the Stars in his career, but sometimes it's nice to throw a guy out there that an opponent has never seen. And we'll see. They're all led by Nick Suzuki, 32 points in 36 games. Cole Caulfield, of course, one of the high draft picks from a few seasons ago, and had a season-ending injury last year. He's got 10 goals in 30 games this season. They've been very busy, but just not quite playing to the level. And they're kind of stuck in that situation where they're just waiting to make that big jump. Unfortunately, when they went to that Stanley Cup a few seasons ago, it probably put them back a few years, which is really unfortunate. But the number 1 pick from a few seasons ago, too, Slafkovsky, not having a great year, 13 points in 36 games. That hasn't been looking very pretty of a pick. And they're just kind of all going backwards. But, of course, they got some good veterans on the team. Brendan Gallagher, Dvorak is another one. They have some, Jakai on the back end. Wi-Fi is his nickname. That is big. And of course, they have some guys like every team does. But I think the Stars should have no problem here tonight taking down the Canadiens. And hopefully it's a good contest at the AAC. Okay, shooting star. Who is your shooting star for tonight's contest? Man, we've had some great performances. And yeah, I haven't been right on with my picks, but the last 2 picks I made, they scored goals. Jamie Benn and Jason Robertson. So, of course, Rope was the player of the game, along with Marchment, back-to-back games with a hat trick. So maybe someone has a hat trick in them tonight. My shooting star, I'm going with it, Thomas Harley. Man, he's had some good looks. I like Thomas Harley to get his 10th goal of the season. Let 55 have a night. Harley, my shooting star tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. Please let me know your shooting star pick in the comments below. All righty. What a Tuesday it has been. 2024 has been off to a hot start. The first game of the new year, the Montreal Canadiens versus the Dallas Stars. Of course, I'll have a live reaction for you after. We'll break it down tomorrow. Be sure to check out yesterday's episode as well, where I completely broke down the blowout that the Stars had against the Blackhawks on New Year's Eve. That was a lot of fun, shutting down Connor Bedard. See if they can shut down Cole Caulfield and the Canadiens tonight. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you to all you everydayers out there. And for everybody that makes this podcast a first listen, 2024 is going to be amazing, and the Stars are going to the moon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow for some more Stars talk. So long, Stars fans.